What was the next thing? Or you could type it in the chat box, right? You can do that too. So we'll get ourselves comfortable. I'm going to come back to sit down so that we can start practice. So welcoming ourselves, you might sit as well, and maybe you'll find a prop to support the tailbone. If not, and you want to lay back down, that's good too. Maybe you come to lay down on your back or your belly and use any props to support you while laying. However you want to start practice is the way to go. So that's first and foremost. And then from there, we might move around within our seat, or we'll move around within our body if we're laying down. And once you're ready, you can come to stillness. So no rush to get to stillness, but once you're there, you're welcome to it. And as we begin to arrive, slowly, eventually, you'll allow the eyes to close, but again, no rush to get there. You'll close your eyes when you're ready. Maybe the gaze will be soft, not looking at anything specific. And just arriving into our senses, arriving into our bodies, arriving into our breath. Softening into the body when you're ready, whether it's first at the jaw and then at the shoulders, and then maybe at the hands, and so on and so forth. But the way in which we might just relax into a beanbag, or if you've ever been floating, right, in those salt, Epsom salt tanks and such, we'll just allow ourselves to almost float here within our bodies as we soften. A zero gravity approach to this. And as we might sit and welcome some intentions for class, arriving into our awareness, in what ways can we welcome this idea or this mentality of being that student? Of being the student within our awareness as we observe, and then being the teacher of our awareness as we guide ourselves throughout our own yin practice. And as we stretch the fascia and as we create more space within our bodies, can we begin to think about how we're also creating more and more space for thought, more and more space for interpretation, more and more space for the body to communicate its messages. Maybe coming back to this idea of, what happens when we forget to listen? As the body communicates, as these messages are revealing themselves through, right, the surfaces of the body. What happens when we forget to listen? To complete that sentence, we forget to learn. When we forget to listen, we forget to learn, but we can probably complete that sentence in so many different ways. So to build into the theme of the layers of the onions into this Dharma talk, how can we honor ourselves as a student? How can we honor ourselves as a teacher? How can we welcome ourselves to create this space for thought? And then from that, how can we remind ourselves of the importance of listening? And what happens when we forget? So within this collage of themes, maybe one thing just stuck, right? One thing you related to, maybe you relate to all of these different themes and all of these different similarities. So feel free to choose with whatever you'd like to connect with tonight, helping that theme guide you throughout your practice as we arrive in stillness from shape to shape. So with that in mind, let's first find a full cleansing breath. Together, we'll inhale through the nose and open the lips to exhale. This next time, you might keep your hands relaxed within the lap. You might gather them into prayer or leave them somewhere else on the body. You might take another cleansing breath, or maybe join me for the sound of Om. But together, we'll take a deep breath in. Ooh. Very gently bowing the chin to the chest. Just take a moment to allow your breath or your vibrations to settle within the heart space, to reverberate off the walls of the inner body, and to seal your intentions for practice. So from here, we'll slowly open the eyes. We'll bring the hands away. As we welcome ourselves, we're going to start in deer. It's one of my favorite places to start. So if you're laying down, you'll come back up to sit. And in doing so, we'll find maybe a pillow, blanket, or something. We'll allow the left shin to come in front of us. Right knee will bend behind you. So I'm just going to mirror you to the screen. Left shin in front, right knee behind. Right? And we can even see, even within the way I'm sitting, right, one hip draws down. So if propping that tailbone or side glute is helpful, please do so. And you have options here, right? Maybe your feet are similar to mine. Maybe everything's a little closer. Maybe everything's a little farther. So feel free to listen and have your body guide you as well. You might create some sort of stacking of props with blocks, pillows, bolsters, blankets, and things, and you'll support yourself as you fold. You can make it as high as you'd like. To keep the spine a little taller, maybe you just wrap props around your belly and you're just going to bring your arms over them and hold. So feel free to do what's best for you. And then just to turn to the side here, again, if I were to fold and just show you, I might take my forearms and support my head. I might have my forearms down upon my props and keep my head lifted. Right? You might start in one variation and then continue to guide yourself into another. So there's no sense of being stuck. Right? There's a sense of stillness, but there's no sense of being stuck. So take your time as you arrive, no rush. As you find your shape, the best place to begin, you can then close the eyes. Beginning to notice sensation here. Notice where the body might be stretching first, where the body might be stretching second, third, so on and so on. Finding that zero gravity approach. Letting ourselves soften within the layer of muscle and bone. Almost feeling like we're suspended. There's fascia around us. There's structure. But within that structure, there is fluidity and space, length. So continue to arrive into your breath here. allowing the breath to stay present. If you need a little more sensation, you can explore. If you need a little less, allow yourself to explore. But when we find our edge, when we find that place between comfort and discomfort, we want to invite ourselves to stay. We want to invite ourselves to observe, witness, coming from that student perspective. So with that in mind, let's stay here for a few more moments. If you'd like to stay a little longer, you're more than welcome to. But whenever you're ready, we'll begin to press down into the floor. We'll begin to lift from the head and chest, or press into the props, right? You'll start to unravel your legs one at a time. So no rush to this. Your body might fold over straight legs. Your body might come forward, tabletop, child's pose. Your body might lay down to hug the knees in, or so on and so forth. Just letting the body move gradually. No right or wrong. And just taking some counter movement. And after your counter movements, we'll find that place to rebound. Facing any direction within your room. A few breaths to rebound gives us that time and space for the fascia to contract back. To settle along the joints, the muscles, the bones, the organs. Everything that it cradles. And taking that moment to fully witness the body. Just absorbing for another breath. And then if you'd like to stay here a little longer, you're more than welcome to do so. If you're ready for the next stretch, we're not going to come into deer on the right side just yet. We might, reposition ourselves, but we're going to allow ourselves to lay down so that we can come into a twist. And then after we twist, we'll come up to take deer and then twist on the other side. So essentially, right now we were in this kind of like 90-90 shape. Some places call it 90-90. Which is what was deer, right, as we were forward folding. So we're going to do that again, but in the twist. So as we pick up our hips and scooch them to the right, we're going to make a pinwheel twist. So have the left knee draw higher up towards the chest, right knee lowers, right? So this is similar to the angles that we were making in deer, but like I said, now we're in a twist. In the event that even, propping this leg, propping the shoulders, propping the head, if it's still not helpful, instead of having this right knee bent, maybe you straighten the leg. That's okay too. And if you don't want to do that either, maybe you take more of a supine twist type of shape with one knee on top of the other. So any variation in terms of twist, you might walk your right shoulder blade underneath you a little more. And as far as the arms go, hands can stay near you, open out into T. Maybe they reach up above the head, but if you'd like to try something a little different, you'll still have, your right arm horizontal, but I like to make my arms like an L. So my right arm is horizontal, but my left arm reaches up towards my ear and I let it rest towards the side of my skull. And let the hands relax and such, but sometimes I can get this extra length underneath my left shoulder or my left arm. So if that, if it interests you, you can try it. But of course, you're welcome to find any shape with the arms. And then within your time here, we'll close the eyes and we'll settle. Begin to observe again, maybe the first sensation, then the second and the third. Arriving into our bodies to not only enhance what we do physically, but even energetically. We are simultaneously calming, but also strengthening the nervous system. We are simultaneously being a student of ourselves and in observation, along with being a teacher to ourselves as we guide and follow. If you haven't softened into the shape, we'll begin to do so. Letting go of any clenching or gripping. Noticing any shifts within breath. As we observe the outline of our body, as well as the inner layers of our body. A few more breaths in this twist. If you'd like to stay a little longer, you're welcome to. If you're ready to release, you'll begin to do so, unraveling the legs one at a time. Maybe the knees windshield wiper. Maybe you hug the knees and the chest and you straighten the legs up towards the ceiling. Maybe the arms find movements. Maybe you'll surprise yourself with a movement. And eventually, after what we counter, we'll come back to stillness just for a short pause so that we can take our rebound, observing even more. And if you've ever had the opportunity to, blow out a candle for your birthday and you close your eyes and you make a wish, right? It's like within that moment, we're fully present. And that kind of is like now in rebound. Observing subtle sensations. Observing this reclaimed space that we're creating just through the stretch. Just taking another moment for yourself here. If you'd like to stay a little longer, you're more than welcome to stay in rebound. But if you're choosing to come into deer on the opposite side, then we'll let ourselves come back up to sit. No rush to get there. Take your time. Eventually, as we come up to sit, supporting ourselves for deer on the opposite side, right shin comes in front of us now, left knee behind. Right, but for whatever reason, if you started on the opposite side, just do the opposite. Propping the tailbone or the right glute, you might prop the one knee, you might prop an ankle, and maybe you didn't even think about it, but in case you did, the ankle here, the back ankle, the toes can be untucked so that the top of the foot's on the floor, or the toes can be out to the side. Feel free to just do what's natural for your body. Having the toes out to the side is not natural for me. Even when I show it, I'm just like, oh, my knee. So feel free to just choose what works for you. Finding those props, right? With blocks, with books, with pillows, with bolsters, with blankets and things, just so that we can support ourselves folding over the shin. Now, you might lean a little bit to the foot, you might lean a little bit to the knee, and that's fine. It's not about perfectly folding over the shin. So notice if your body's going to have a curve to it. Let me know if you have a question, if you need more stretch, less stretch. Or if you're just curious about something. Arriving into stillness. Arriving here as we begin to let go of unnecessary tension. Softening into the body, letting go of unnecessary control. Just take your time as you guide your awareness through the body so that we can notice if the jaw is tight, if the eyes are clenching. Notice if the belly is squeezing, or even if your calves are tensed. We have the ability to apply our awareness there, and we can let those areas release. Letting our bodies release as we offer this time to receive. Checking in with the breath, another area we can soften. And checking in with the gaze at the backs of the eyelids. We might think of these sharings as ways the body teaches us. Maybe it's just a form of communication. Just a couple more breaths here. And if you'd like to stay a little longer, you're more than welcome to. And if you're ready to release, as we press down into the floor, we'll come back up. Eyes can be closed at this part, gaze could be soft. You'll just let the body move naturally, always reminding ourselves that within this structure there is fluidity. And notice if we're leaning too far to just one side. And some days and some stretches, you might want bigger counter movements. You'll go to shape to shape to shape to shape. Sometimes it might just be one or two things until you settle into that space to rebound. And finding comfort within rebound. Almost like a mini Shavasana. A place to absorb our awareness. The changes of the fascia settling into the memory of the body, the neural memory, muscle memory. Just taking another moment of breath here. And if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. And if you're ready to find that pinwheel twist on the right side, then we'll get ourselves ready for that. So we might, move some props around so that we can now support ourselves in the twist. Maybe there's a pillow for the head or shoulders, bolster, blanket, or something to support the outer thigh or inner thigh, really. But as we come to lay back down, we'll pick up the hips. We'll come to twist upon the left hip as the right leg now twists over the body. Maybe supporting, right, the inner knee and thigh. The left knee might be bent and it can be placed wherever you'd like. If it's closer to you, more supportive of a stretch. If the knee and foot start to draw back, like behind you, and you'll start to feel a little arch in your spine, that might deepen your stretch somewhere. If you want to straighten the left leg instead, that's good too. And maybe you come to a supine twist, bring both knees into the chest and twist to the side. Okay, so whatever's good for your body as the arms create some space, whether they rest near you, come into T. Or now the left arm stays out to the side as the right arm lifts up towards the ear, making an L shape with the arms. There's no right or wrong, so just allow yourself to explore and then settle into stillness. Creating this current of conversation with the breath. Letting it help move through the body. In that podcast conversation I was referencing earlier, the interviewer who just took class with me a couple times said an amazing analogy that I have to share. So he was like, the way that I'm looking at this is, or at least how he was feeling in his body, is that the areas that are tight for him, the fascia that is bounded or knotted, reminded him of like that tanglement of Christmas lights or holiday lights or any type of light. I mean, some people just hang those types of lights in the bedroom, right? I mean, whatever they are. But it's just that tanglement of a cord, right? It could be an extension wire, it could be anything. And he's like, and as, you spend the time unraveling it and it goes longer and longer and longer and it creates space. And I was like, that's an amazing analogy. Right? And you can feel that. Because as that, bounded, wired holiday light, whatever you want to imagine, as the fascia begins to uncoil and we reclaim that space, we feel taller and wider and longer, lengthier. Our bones aren't actually growing. We are literally reclaiming that space around our organs and our joints and our bones and our muscles. Being inspired as we consistently learn from, yet teach to the body or the mind and the heart. We'll be here for a few more breaths. Continue to absorb more within the twist. And then within your own time, whenever you're ready, we can gently begin to, awaken the arms, maybe then the legs, moving through the fingers and toes, however you'd like to guide yourself here. You're just taking movements. Maybe you're hugging the knees into the chest. Maybe the arms stretch up above the head. Maybe the arms wrap around the shoulders. Of course, coming to pause and rebound whenever you'd like. And taking these moments here to observe, but still soften. Continuing to let go of unnecessary tension, unnecessary control. A few more breaths here. And then if you would like to stay in rebound a little longer, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you're ready to transition, we'll talk about open wing. So open wing, we take on our bellies and essentially we roll to the side. So no rush. You might find a few counter movements as you awaken from rebound, and then we can talk more and more about open wing. So for open wing, you might find a pillow or blanket for the head. Like I said, we'll let ourselves come to lay down on the belly. And because we're going to be on the shoulder and hip, you might need another extra layer of blanket if it's helpful to support the bones. So essentially, as we allow ourselves to lay on your belly, left arm is going to come out to T and you'll roll into the shoulder. Okay, so as I do this on this side, so you can see me, bringing that arm behind you, rolling into the shoulder, right? And you'll scooch yourself there. Again, propping the head for support. Knees might come up into the chest as if we were, kind of mimicking a supine twist. Maybe your left knee stays bent and the right knee bends, but the foot comes flat to the floor. Maybe the left leg straightens. Maybe both legs straighten, right? So there's many options here. If you do bend that right knee and bring the foot to the mat, it might be comfortable to rest behind the leg or you'll walk it in front of you. But again, it just depends on your hips and what feels most natural here. With the left arm behind you, your right arm can hang out in front of you. You might reach it up and over the back, take a half bind. Sometimes it could even feel good to let that bicep rest over the head. This is kind of not as relaxing, more engaging. So feel free to choose what your body is asking for. Your left hand, the palm can face the floor or turn up to face the ceiling, whatever is best for your elbow and arm. And then whenever you're ready, we'll close the eyes and begin to welcome ourselves here. Creating space for more and more breath, more and more thought, but the quality of thought. Something that aligns with us, something that supports us, something that teaches us. And as we soften into our bodies, even letting ourselves soften into the left and right sides of the brain. And simultaneously in our yin practice, we do use our logical thought process, but we also use our intuitive, creative thought process. The patterns of the structure and of the fluidity coming to life through the movement and stillness of the body. And staying present within the shape. Letting the breath go where it needs. Letting the eyes gaze wherever desired. Another few breaths exactly where we are. And as we keep that left arm still, if the right arm is behind you or anywhere, we can bring the palm back in front of the chest, straightening one leg upon the other. And we'll let ourselves slowly and gently roll out of this left shoulder. We'll come back upon the chest and belly, letting the hands and arms rest above you, behind you, underneath you. What feels comfortable? Maybe rocking the hips side to side, or as you bend into the knees, we'll windshield wiper them from side to side. Maybe the legs just float here. And you decide to stay on the belly. Maybe the legs relax. If the palms come underneath the shoulders as you pull the heart forward any amount, maybe extending through the spine and finding a child's pose or some other shape to rest within rebound or stay exactly where you are. Noticing the tissue contracting back. The echoes of the fascia here. Just reverberating within the walls of the body, in the same way our breath does, the same way our ohms and any type of chant will do. Even when we sing, when we laugh, there's reverberations from the breath within the body. Tissue is doing that here as we pause and observe. If you'd like to stay and rebound a little longer, you're more than welcome to stay. If you're interested, we're going to come into open wing on the opposite side. This isn't really one of my favorite stretches. I could like live without the stretch, but it's one of my favorite rebounds. So as you're thinking about some of these poses, maybe you're like, oh, I really dig that stretch, or I really don't. Or maybe it's like, oh, I really dig that rebound, or I don't, you know? So anyway, setting ourselves up, right arm comes out to T, same idea as we roll into the right shoulder. Palm facing behind you as you roll into the right shoulder. If you need the leg variations again, I can show them. Knees into the chest, legs straightening. That back left knee might bend so that the foot comes flat to the floor or steps in front. Maybe find your own, different combination for the legs to be in. All are good options. Left palm might rest in front of the chest or belly. Maybe your forearm relaxes. Maybe the arms stretch up and above the head to take a full body stretch. Or up and back behind. I'm not really sure what I just mentioned, but the arm can be up and above the head or bounded behind the back. Settling into the best shape for you, at least at this point. You can transition whenever needed. Beginning to let go of any clenching or gripping. Noticing if the body is physically holding, energetically holding. As we find these currents of conversation between the layers of the body, always in communication. Rather than letting ourselves become overwhelmed with the external stimulation, we're allowing ourselves to explore this internal stimulation. What we can learn from that, or what we can apply from knowledge that we already know. Listening doesn't only enhance our communication, it doesn't only enhance our thought, it also provides and gives us the opportunity to make choices. Listening to our bodies in yin, aligning physically, energetically. A few more breaths exactly where we are. And then if that left arm is above you or behind you in some way, we'll guide the palm in front of us. If the legs are apart, we'll take one leg upon the other. as we roll out of our bellies or roll out of our shoulders and onto our bellies. Letting the hands relax above you, laying them behind you, laying them underneath you. And you might guide yourself directly into rebound, or you can, sway through the hips for a few breaths, kick the feet up and windshield wiper the knees. Maybe you take a different shape to find your rebound pose. Or you'll stay exactly where you are. I'm beginning to notice that humming or buzzing of presence. The sense within us that reawakens just with our awareness. Continuing to soften even in rebound. If you'd like to stay here a little longer, you're more than welcome to. But if you're interested in releasing, since we're going to come up to sit, you might bring the palms underneath you if you're on your belly anyway. You can push the hips and guide the hips back to child's pose. Or you might come into child's pose just in another way. You can walk yourself there. If it feels good to just lengthen the hips for a moment, lengthen the back spine. Allowing your fingertips to acquire some length as well as they reach forward. From here, if this feels good, of course, you can stay a little longer. You might press down and we'll continue to come back to a seated shape. So from here, we're going to essentially come into ankle stretch and toe stretch back to back, but I can't remember if last Monday, did I show you guys the thing where we put the block like in the feet? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so this is just going to be the third option. So let me go through all the options of ankle stretch, because after we do either ankle or like sole stretch, right after that, we're going to come right into toes. Okay, so there won't be a rebound in between. And this is, so let me go through all the options. Okay, option one, in the event that you take one block to sit in Virasana or Hero's Pose, or if you need two blocks, you can do that as well. And toes are untucked, you'll hug the blocks. This might be the best place for your ankles today, or your shins or your knees, so go for it. If you want more of an ankle stretch, then you're just gonna do kind of the same thing, but you're bringing your heels towards each other, you're sitting upon them. If you need a little prop for your glutes, you can. Option two. Option three, this is what we are used to doing, all of these ones. You might lift up your knees, bring a prop underneath the shins, and you're also an ankle stretch, because now the higher the knees, more of the stretch. Right, but that's also depending, because for me, this is actually really comfortable. It's when I bring my knees down and my heels in that I actually get the stretch. So because of rotation, you can always play around and explore. So if any of those typical options that we normally do, which are all great, if you want one of those today, go for it. In the event that you have a block, whether it's cork or soft, and you want to try this new thing, you're going to come to lift, and essentially the edge of the block, and you know the times when we bring it behind the head, when we lay down and we work with the fascia and the skull, other times we're like laying our rib on it and we're going forward and back to have the edge of the block work its way into the fascia. It's the same thing here. So as you kind of wedge that edge of the block into your feet somewhere. Some days it might be higher towards the heels, other days it might be towards the balls of the feet. So you can kind of just surprise yourself and see where you land. But essentially you're going to wedge the edge of the block. You're coming to sit back on it. So that edge that might be, leaning in the back of the head or leaning into the ribs is now in the feet. And when you're sitting on this, like right now, for me, it's at the balls of my feet and the inner arches, and I can feel a lot of pressure. So I'm on a fascial point. I'm on a knot of tissue. And staying still is fine, or you might rock and just kind of like tip into the hips side to side. And now I'm letting that edge of the block kind of explore that whole area of both feet. So that's the story. This one's really intense. Whether you have a soft block too, it does the same thing. This one might be a little slippery. So if you need to hold on to it, that might be okay too. Sometimes I bring my fingertips under the block, and it feels good for my shoulders to do that as I wedge my fingertips under the block. And maybe your arms might not reach the block, right? So that's okay, but your hands can still hang behind you. Your hands can rest on the lap for anybody, wherever you are. Feel free to explore here and then decide what's best for you. And if you have any questions, let me know, or even after class if you want to share. So wherever you are, feeling the stretch or this pressure into the soles of the feet somewhere, into the ankles, into the shins, into the knees, we're all in something. How can we support ourselves as we soften? Can we allow there to be this greater presence of breath? Just allowing it to easily ebb and flow within, to expand and contract. Softening through the upper body so that the lower body doesn't feel disconnected. And staying present. We'll be here for just a few more breaths, whatever you're noticing, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking. Whether the breath is quieter, the breath is a little louder, allowing it to shift just as our awareness does. And from here, whenever you're ready, we'll slowly begin to hinge forward. So we might be moving props from underneath the knees. We might be removing props from underneath the glutes. Right? Just take your time. You might walk your knees back as the hands come down to the floor, kind of like a tabletop shape. Like I said, we're going to transition right into toe stretch. So from there, we're going to tuck the toes, and then we're going to sit back on the heels. Now, whether you're sitting on the heels or you take your blocks in front of you and let your hands or your forearms be supported, any prop could do this. So feel free to do what is best for you at this moment. After I have the block on the soles of my feet, once I come into ankle stretch, toe stretch, it's like a whole new world. So as we breathe in between the spaces of the toes, releasing any burdens from the heels of the feet, from the balls of the feet. Again, not clenching to disconnect the body, softening as we enhance connection. Lower body softening, torso softening, upper body, remembering the muscles of the face here. Maybe taking 1 or 2 more cycles of breath. And then within your own time, we'll hinge forward in that same way, moving slow. Palms will come down, and as we slowly untuck one foot and then release the other, tops of the feet are on the mat. You might drum the tops of the feet. You might pick up the ankles and just shake them a little bit. Maybe extending one leg behind you and then the other. As we gently allow ourselves to come to sit down, and you can do that however you'd like, just to take a moment to straighten the legs. Maybe gently forward fold. So we're not going to hold this. This shape in yin is called caterpillar. If you want to find some blocks nearby, you can. We're not going to be here very long, but just as a pause to not only rebound within the body, but to also rebound a little extra within the feet. Some people might notice a sense of warmth or a sense of coolness here. Rounding after the spine afterwards is even just a little bit of a counter movement after toe stretch and ankle stretch. And noticing any sensations as well into the calves, into the hamstrings, into the glutes. And if we take one more moment of breath here, absorbing all of that, we'll begin to press down to the floor as we slowly lift our head and chest. So we'll begin to prepare for our Shavasana. I'm going to, well, before I say that, let me give you this option. So as we prepare for our Shavasana, which is our final rebound, I'm just going to give us a couple options. So option 1, you might support yourself as you normally would do, taking your pillow and so on and so forth. If you have a particular blanket, I'm using a scarf here, but even if you have a particular blanket, and if you want to fold it, maybe in a vertical shape to support your spine, even doing that, you might still have that pillow on the top of it, but more importantly, where I'm going at is we can open the arms out in this cactus shape, but as we hold this cactus shape, we're just a little bit more supported, right? So to have that blanket underneath you, just to support the spine, allowing the shoulder blades to release off of something, in case you're still looking for some upper body opening, right? Or upper body spaciousness here. So if that interests you, you can take it. Not necessary though, right? If you're feeling a lot of sensation here, then this is definitely not something to do. But if it's relaxing to you, you can take it. Maybe your legs are out long and you have a blanket to cover you. Maybe you're bringing a blanket, a bolster or something underneath your knees if that's helpful for your back. Maybe you're finding something else to do instead. So no rush at all. Creating this comfortable shape, creating this comfortable environment. And we'll begin to close the eyes, gravitating towards stillness. Maybe we take another cycle of breath, sweep of consciousness, and we allow the body to soften once more. Drawing our senses inwards. I'm going to read just the beginning of my Yoga Nidra meditation from another class I taught last night, for a different thing, but it kind of goes with our theme of class tonight. So I'll take us through it, and then we'll spend a few moments of quiet for Shavasana. As we arrive in stillness, let's welcome the presence of our body. Let's welcome the presence of our mind. Let's welcome the presence of our heart. And like a magnet, sticking to its polar surface, we find ourselves mesmerized within this space. What messages can be channeled? What messages can be carried through or brought to the surface of your very being? How can we open our space of thought? How can we open our space for thought? Allowing the layers within your cortex to part like the sea as we begin to feel this deep, deep space within. Transmuting thought into breath and breath into thought. Let's welcome this space within as we continue to draw our senses inward. Feel your body present as we notice the brain. Notice the brain and the skull. Notice the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. Notice both sides of the brain together. Notice the left side of your brain. Notice your right eye. Notice the whole right side of the body. Notice the right side of your brain. Notice your left eye. Notice the whole left side of your body. Notice your brain. Notice your brain and your skull. Notice the skull connected to the rest of the body. Notice the front of your body. Notice the back of the body. Notice the center of your body. Notice the outline of your body. As we continue to absorb our practice, we'll welcome ourselves into the quiet moments of Shavasana. Very gently. Let's begin to deepen our breath, welcoming ourselves back into the space of our body, to the space of our room, to the room we energetically share. And as we come back to the breath, we might notice more and more the presence of the hands and feet. Begin to move through through the fingers and toes. Wiggle through the fingers and toes. Roll into the wrists and ankles. And if you'd like to, you can stretch the arms up and above the head. Maybe you're wrapping the arms around the chest. That feels good to contract the shoulders. And of course, as the knees bend in, you might wrap around the shins or the backs of the thighs. Rocking here gently, you'll roll to one side of the body, left or right. And as you roll to the side hip, just releasing the back, breath of fresh air along the spine. You might choose to stay here and end your practice, or maybe you press down and walk back up to a seated shape. And as we come to close, we'll find a comfortable way to be, settling back to stillness as we take that moment of reflection. Feeling reclaimed space, expansion, clarity. Feeling the blend and the interconnectedness between being both teacher and student to ourselves and our experience. We'll close with one cleansing breath. Hands can stay relaxed within the lap. Maybe one hand is on the heart and the other on the belly. Maybe the hands are in prayer. But as we find this one cleansing breath together, we'll breathe in through the nose. We'll open the lips to exhale. And as we bow the chin to the chest, thank you for practicing with me this evening, being elevated through yoga. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody. If you have any questions,